Oh,
Dog.
the mixing. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh boy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 530 of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Terry Mixon. Joining me, Paul E. Goulet.
What's that you say? Huh, Sonny? Huh? Huh?
Ready
Huh, Sonny?
to rumble.
No, I'm not ready to rumble. I'm too old to rumble.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you're ready to rumble at our age, it's more like those little rumbler chairs.
I hear rumble seat, and I'm thinking, oh, tux pads are going to be necessary after that. Damn, did I really say that out loud? Holy
Yes,
shit.
you did. Thanks
Oh
for
my
going ahead
God.
and spicing us up with butt-related humor at the start of this episode.
Well,
We appreciate it.
we could only go up.
I love the confidence that you're showing in us right now, because I'm pretty confident that we could go downhill from here.
I don't know how far down, because wow. No one say that's what she said. Just stop it right now, you bunch of sick perverts.
You right there, you just managed to take us downhill from where you put us before. Congratulations, Paul.
Well, it's good to have skills. Okay, now that's done.
I'm walking away from that.
You should not have paid attention.
What have you been up to, Paul? Tell me you've accomplished something.
I have accomplished nothing.
Damn it, Jim.
What have I been doing? I've been working my ass off on a little project that is a paying project. Has nothing to do with writing. So I've been busting my ass on that since, Friday, I guess, Saturday. I don't remember. Somewhere along those lines. So I've been working on that pretty hard and heavy, and haven't gotten back to writing much recently. But I'm going to get back to that this week, especially if I manage to solve this current problem tonight. Then I can get back to writing, because I'll be ready for this weekend. Yay.
Well, I sure hope that you can get that problem solved.
So do I. Other than that, not much else.
All right, I'll take it. For me, I finished writing the Empire novel that I'm working on. It's not going to be Raid on Terra because, well, there was no rating. So it's going to be Race to Terra. But they got there. Spoiler!
I still like the first alternate title.
What was the first alternate?
Oh my fucking God, we finally made it to Terra.
I'm going to make a note of that, because I think I could go ahead and use that.
Donna would be so pissed.
Donna would be really mad if I made that as the cover.
The title takes up the entire cover. Yeah. That'll go over well.
Yeah, that would work out for me so well.
I foresee a baseball bat in your future.
Yeah, she knows where I sleep. I'm going to be a little cautious there.
Yeah, it's the same reason I had to give up giving my full name as my author name, because it was just too many freaking letters to fit on a book. Too many freaking letters. Way too many. Ugh.
Anyway. You could definitely just get rid of the entire middle part there and just be Paul Cooley.
I didn't want to do that, because there's a financial real estate snake oil scumbag out there with a podcast called Paul Cooley.
Then call yourself the real Paul Cooley.
The real Paul Cooley. Oh my God. No. I do not definitely want to be the only Paul Cooley who's real.
Anyhow.
Yeah, parse that statement, buddy.
I'm going to walk away from that one as well. I also finished a short story for an anthology and got that off to the publisher this morning, a couple of hours before we started recording, as a matter of fact. So that's another thing off my hit parade. Now, the next thing on my list is to go back and take the book I just finished, the novel, and read through it one more time to make sure that I get all the little details right. I figure that'll take a week, thereabouts, and then I'll get it off to the copy editor.
Yay!
Yay! Then I can start writing the next novel, which is going to be interrupted before I can possibly finish it. It's true. And I know it going into it. I'll start writing it. I won't have more than 2 weeks to write on it. And then I'll have to switch gears and do my half of the co-writing with Glenn Stewart for the next book that we're doing with his because of deadline.
Right. Yeah.
So I'll write a third to a half of the next novel, skip to writing the middle of Glenn's book, and then skip back to writing the end of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I can live with that.
Yeah. I think you're going to be busy, but you're going to be happy.
I am. 2019 is going to be a productive year, unless I'm run over by a bus.
Yeah, that would make it not so productive.
But I'm producing a lot of words, so I'm happy with that. I've discovered that the key to producing words is keeping my expectations low. If I only write a chapter a day, it's only 22, 23, 2,500 words. But if I do it every day, that's more than if I try to write more and then get burned out a little bit and skip a day.
True.
We'll see if I can just keep doing that for the rest of this year. If I do, that's 7 or 8 books. I can deal with it.
Oh, yeah. I could deal with that. Yeah, fuck you.
Well, if you weren't writing Brandon Sanderson-sized
whatever. Shut up. Leave me alone. The one I'm working on now is should be only 85 to 100K.
Oh, those are some famous last words.
No, yeah, I know. I know. And it's sad. But I already talked myself out of writing 30,000 words of setup, so.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like starting a novel off with the professor already running around the lab with the tentacle horror chasing him.
Yeah, well, that's where I wanted to start, but, it just wasn't working out. It turned it into like this violent cartoon, and it just wasn't a good deal.
Make sure all the lab equipment is from Acme.
Yeah, I got some message from J.R. Hanley saying there actually was an Acme something or other in his neighborhood, his neck of the woods. So
I'm sure it used to be a big company.
Oh, I'm sure there are. It may be because there were dozens of companies named Acme that joke originally came into being.
Or it may have been like it was Standard Oil of its time and it did everything.
Yeah, I have to look that up at some point. Just useless trivia. I mean, you'll never need it, but still, it's there if you do. Like on trivia night, Drinks with Geeks. Find your local chapter.
I see.
Terry's like, what in the...
I'm not sure what you're on, man, but it's good stuff.
I'm on live. And sunlight, I guess.
Well, it's difficult enough seeing you in the sun because usually you're like imbued with darkness because you are the shadow.
There you go.
But it is what it is today. You got the sunlight.
Yay!
So today, Paul, I want to talk about setting the stage.
Wait a minute. I thought I just said that I excised that 30,000 words up front.
That's not setting the stage.
That's not setting the stage?
Meandering along and describing a book in 17 pages. A bush.
I am not describing a bush in 17 pages.
Sure?
Now, I might describe the ocean from a lanternfish's point of view for 17 or 18 pages.
Only if it's AUV 5. That's the only time I'm going to let you do that.
No AUV 5 in this story.
Well, damn it, Jim.
Yeah, I know.
But in any case, let's go ahead and get into the meat of the subject.
Zooplankton and micronectin.
Sounds disgusting.
Oh, dude. I have so many weird tabs open on my browser right now. It's just bizarre. Everything from instars and chemotrophs to Cnidaria, Physalia utricula, ecosystems, a mesopelagic zone, BBC Earth, and a whole bunch of other shit.
I'm not sure if that's setting in your world or just research porn.
It's all research. Not research porn, but it's the stuff I needed to know. For what I'm going to do. I think I figured it out today exactly how I am going to throw these people into the deep end, pardon the pun.
Well, that actually fits with what I'd like to talk about today.
Bollocks.
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 You mean we're not actually going to wander all over the place and just settle on a topic? We're going to actually discuss something that we've thought about ahead of time?
We thought about something ahead of time?
Well, at least I did.
Well, I thought that was kind of funny because when we talked about this over Messenger,
That's the thing.
when we were communicating over Messenger, I was like, oh, that really fits with what I'm doing right now, which is kind of terrifying.
You know, we're just linked. I know what you're
linked?
thinking.
I know. Oh, God, I hope not.
God, I hope not either.
Jesus. I don't think I could stand 2 minutes in the hamster wheel that is your life. And I don't think you can go to the dark places my head goes.
Yeah, let's try to avoid that. What I'd like to talk about is setting the stage, which is getting the stuff put into your story that that creates the setting, that creates the feeling of your world, that creates the universe in which your characters live in. And it sets the tone for the entire story going forward. But all too many authors that I've seen just seem to basically start at some random place and their universe building is a little haphazard. And I'm curious how you go about setting the tone and setting the details into the story that set the stage for what you're going to do. And you started in telling that with all the research that you're doing.
Right. I have this story that's set in a very, very deep ocean. So first thing I want to do is want to learn what the water looks like at various depths, water temperatures at various depths. I want to know if there's anything land-like around. I want to know how shallow the water can get. I want to know how deep the water can get. I want to know the feel of what it might be like to float out there. Because all that is the world that these people are going to live in. It's what they're sitting on top of, and it's what's beneath them. And it's two different worlds, two very different worlds, but they interact in both of them. So creating a differential between the two so that when they're on the ship, it has this completely different feel than when they're under the water. But I need to know what that is, what that's like, and how that's going to color how these people are going to react to things.
I think you would actually end up saying that it's more than two worlds, because as you get deeper into the ocean, it's going to be different.
This is true.
Each segregated layer of the ocean requires different type of breathing apparatus, has different types of life forms that are the predators and the prey. Some of them may go back and forth between them, but if you go down a couple of 100 meters, it's certainly much different than what you've got on the surface.
Yeah. And that's part of the fun of it too, is for reasons of biology, the people are going to have to use different ways to research things at different altitudes, or depths, altitudes, which allows me to bring to bear a lot of the, it gets me ready for the kinds of things these folks are going to have to do. What are they going to require on the ship in order to do what they're trying to do? And so that stockpile, and just by what they're going to need, I know the kinds of characters I need. I'm going to need people who are divers. I'm going to need people who are scientists. I'm going to need researchers. I'm going to need all that garbage aboard this ship, as well as people who know what they're actually doing with a ship. So that's the world right there. Before I have character one, I know all those things I'm going to have.
When I was, some of the research I did when I was writing a mystery novel set around Lake Tahoe, I did some research on Lake Tahoe itself. And it's a freshwater lake, a very large one, and it's very cold. It's not one you just, hop your little self into and take a swim. It's cold. So people that are out on it are in diving suits to help keep their warmth while they're going around skiing, doing other things, or they get really cold when they hit the water. But it's also really deep. I forget now. I think it's one end of it's like almost 1,000 feet down. And when you get to the bottom of it, it's an oxygen deprived, really cold area. And there are stories, which are probably not true, of mobsters throwing people with concrete galoshes in there who are still stuck on the bottom because their bodies have not decayed. I don't believe that's true for a moment. But I believe that there's probably all kinds of weird stuff down there, like, I don't know, maybe a car or two sitting at the bottom of there
Oh, it would
that's
not
in
surprise me.
amazingly decent shape.
It would not surprise me if there are many skeletons down there that are still attached to concrete blocks.
Yeah.
But by now, if they've been in there a few years, I can't imagine the body wouldn't have decomposed. But see,
But
that's an interesting detail.
It's an urban legend that
Sure.
fits with the setting. So having people talk about it, even if it's not true, is certainly one way to set the tone of the movie. And Reno's not so far away, so that's where the bodies would have come from. I'm not kidding. Reno is right up the road.
I was just thinking about Bugsy's delivery service, or Bugsy's takeaway service. They come pick up the corpse and they take it out there to Tahoe.
Yeah, it was
like
definitely.
It's like calling the post office and saying, "I have a package for you to pick up."
It's like John Wick calling the cleanup service.
Well, I haven't seen John Wick, but I understand what you're saying.
What's wrong with you?
I haven't gotten around to it. Leave me alone. I know the third movie's coming out. We saw the commercial this weekend, and I just was shaking my head.
I think it's going to be fun.
I'm sure it will be. It's exactly the kind of movie Terry Mixon would give a raging thumbs up to.
Yes, it is.
We're not going to talk about which
I gave. Well, I'm going to all three. How about that? Does that make you feel better?
No.
Honestly, if you want to, as a side comment, if you want to understand how action movies can be done extremely well, John Wick, the first movie, is something you should see. Because they set the universe in that. They put all the little details in there that make the universe feel so real. It makes it feel so different also than the world we live in. It's an amazing thing to watch that movie and see the little bits and the crucial details that are never really explained. I mean, when he digs up his assassin's gear, it's got a bunch of gold coins in there that are used inside the assassin's world to pay for things. Who makes these coins? What do you do to earn these things? I mean, it's an interesting piece of scenery that flavors the entire thing.
Yeah, it's all this stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be explained.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. That's one of the most difficult parts about setting all this up, is the urge to info dump.
Oh, avoid the info dump.
So, for instance, today I was looking at microscopes that my folks would be using, because we've gotten to that point in the book already. So just by that, I now have to explain what a confocal microscope is. But it's only when it's being used that we're going to discover this. Otherwise, it would be stupid for me to give a diatribe about all the different microscopes there are and why they're using this one.
Yeah, it's totally true. It really doesn't matter. The details of it are irrelevant for the reader. Unless you're a scientist, you don't care.
Right, but I might describe the confocal microscope.
Yes. In a sentence or two, you describe what it does, as opposed to getting in depth of the science of how it works.
Right. And I've got biologists. What do biologists do? They cut things up. They study microorganisms. They do chemical analyses on animals or proteins they find, anything else. What does that involve? It means we got to have dissection trays. It means we got to have instruments. We have to have people who are experienced in doing this. More stuff I need for the character, more stuff that sets the world up. So I've kind of spent the time just kind of gathering together the expertises I need.
Once you've got your expertises together, how are you going to eliminate 95% of your research so that you don't put it into your work?
That is where things get really tricky. I had that problem with the black as well, although people apparently loved what I did as far as the oil stuff goes. It's figuring out how to drag out the important details and turn them into something that is pithy, something that they will be able to understand without too much trouble, something that's not going to get in the way of the story, but might be an important explanation of something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you have to go for things like, for instance, explaining the difference between a jellyfish and a Portuguese man of war. Something like that may be very important because they're two very different organisms. And that kind of stuff is important to know if it's important for the story. So I'm not going to talk about, the various larval stages of thus and such, because nobody cares. Unless it's important, nobody cares.
That larval stage, it looks like an alien.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that would be more of a nymph or a pupa, but still. Regardless, it just doesn't matter. So filtering through the research you need, the research, I often have more research than I actually use in the book. Hopefully you're like that too.
Oh, yeah.
Because we may need to have an idea of how something might function, or we may need to know about this particular kind of lake or whatever else, what kinds of things would live in there, what kinds of fauna would be around there, what kind of flora. We may want to know that kind of stuff so we can add really, really tiny details. Like, you know that there's a lot of sycamore in that area. Well, you might mention a sycamore tree or a whole bunch of them.
When I was writing Storm Divers, it was set in orbit around and inside the atmosphere of Jupiter. And I did a lot of research into what people were talking about in the atmosphere of Jupiter, how it behaved differently at various depths, what the gravity would be like for somebody inside it, what the pressure, the heat, the radiation, because that was all critical to making storm diving on Jupiter a dangerous but survivable sport.
Survivable is the important part.
Yeah, because otherwise, it doesn't matter how much of a thrill seeker you are, you're not going to jump feet first into the volcano.
And it's also things like knowing that a diver who dives more than 100 meters down is their air supply is only going to last 15, 20 minutes. As opposed to an hour topside, things like that. It changes dynamics of how things operate and are going to operate. Now, in the case of a lot of this research that I'm doing right now, it's because I realized I needed to know it. I didn't go looking for it because I wanted to go looking for it. I went looking for it because there was a specific reason.
You know how, have you seen The Abyss?
Yeah, of course.
One of my friends from the Army days was watching The Abyss and said those aliens had to be destroyed because of the incredible power that they wielded over the human body by bringing that one guy from the bottom all the way to the surface and him living.
They needed to be destroyed just for that.
Because they were way too powerful. That one thing showed it. And I'm like, you're just being a little too, that much.
But one thing showed it, not the 1,000-foot tsunami that was going to engulf New York City.
That's no loss.
Or the one that was going to destroy Hong Kong or any of the other cities around the world.
Okay, maybe it is a loss.
Yeah.
I'm just snarking on New York.
Yeah, you're being a snarky shithead. So what else is new?
It's what I do. I judge.
You judge. So setting the stage, knowing things that are out there, giving yourself some boundaries, giving yourself some rules to play in. It often helps getting going and keeping going.
When I'm writing science fiction, I have to at least have a hand-wavium type answer to how they can get from star system to star system. Am I going to go with wormholes? Am I going to go with faster than light? Whatever it is, I'm not going to hand wave too much. There has to at least be some type of scientific theory that, if stretched hard enough, could explain what I'm doing.
If you accept dark matter exists, then you have to have certain precepts that you're just going to say, this is that. In The Expanse, they talk about this new engine that made everything possible, but they don't go into how it functions.
That's the key thing. You go ahead and you state what you're going to do, and you don't try to get into the details of it, and just let it be assumed to be the way it is. And people will accept it. It will be inside their universe for that story.
Unless you're a rocket scientist, in which case you can explain just about anything you want.
You can never write a story that won't take somebody that's an expert and get them annoyed with something that you got wrong. You can't write a story, a science fiction story aimed for scientists, because you can never satisfy them.
Unless they're the ones writing it. And even then.
And then no one will read it.
Oh, that's so unfair. That is so unfair.
I know it's terrible that I'm saying that, but it's true. Guns are another thing. You can write something wrong about the use of guns in one of your story. 99% of the people out there will not notice it. The 1% that do will be very vociferous in telling you how you've screwed it up.
They will not leave it alone. They will not let it go.
And you know what? It just doesn't matter.
I saw that you stated in the 1965 Adventure Comics that this was green. It was actually blue.
Yeah, that level of detail no one will care about.
Nobody gives a shit.
If you're gonna stick a magazine into your revolver, that's a problem. So that one might actually get you a problem, and that has happened in some stories that I've read.
And it probably happened because somebody decided to change it from a pistol to revolver and didn't catch it.
And even David Wood put a safety on a Glock, but that's okay. That's okay. When you get to the level of detail to where with guns where you put a safety on a Glock, or you write about how the guy's pulling the trigger on his automatic pistol and realizes he's out of ammunition, except for the way that it works is the slide will lock back. So it'll be, really obvious that you're out of ammunition when you're out of ammunition. Just things like that. If you don't know the subject matter, you can screw those up. And for 99% of the people, they won't care.
But that 1%, oh my God.
And they'll tell you and the entire internet about it.
That's why I'm really considering in my future books, not even naming the brands or models or anything else, just name the type of ammo and that's that.
Don't even name the kind of ammo. Just say it's a pistol and be done with it.
Well, I might say, I could use something like an AUG. Just use the generic name, not give the model, and then don't bother with the ammo.
Yeah.
I like ammo. I like knowing ammo, though, because it means that you have the freedom to do certain things like saying, a rattle of 5.56 millimeter bullets rate thus and such. It kind of adds a little bit of noise to the description in the way that will satisfy the people who want to know that. The other people will just, move right by them.
And don't be the guy. Don't be that one guy writing your post-apocalyptic stuff where you say it was this model rifle with this kind of scope and this other. Yeah, do your research. Don't share the details.
Not unless there is a specific reason. It better be a damn good one.
It should be a good one. Some people do it, and I think it detracts from the story.
Now, what I'm looking forward to in this book is doing what I did in The Black, which is having these little interludes below the ocean. I'm looking forward to doing those again.
I'm sure everything will be fine.
Well, it's just those were those little moments where I try to add in there and give everybody a break from the action, and then we go down and show something that's going on down there. And those were always fun to voice too, because then I put creepy music behind them. I love doing that. It was so much fun. So much fun. I had so much fun with The Black. Trying to have fun with this one.
And I'm sure you will. So, leaving aside the ocean, let's talk about things that are more generic in there.
More generic. Okay.
In the real world, how do you put in the details that will lead up to your story? You're going to be talking about scientists. How do you set the stage of the scientific world, or even just the characters, so that we get a flavor for the world that you're introducing them in without being too obvious about it? Because when people start reading these stories, everything obviously is not bad automatically right at the start. It's going to be their normal universe. How do we get the flavor of it?
I think it just depends. If you've got scientists, for instance, they may be walking through a bunch of labs and security procedures and not think anything abnormal about it at all. But the reader is seeing it. The reader immediately gets the idea that, okay, this place has a lot of security, is under lock and key. So from a writer's point of view, what's it like for this person on a typical day? That's something to think about. It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to write it, but it's something to think about because it will provide the details that these people would notice if something's out of place. And maybe you can, for instance, maybe you have a security situation where one of the computers goes down or something along those lines. You can explain the entire procedure of the security stuff and show how that is, and it gives you an idea of what the world is like just from that.
Yeah.
Or another easy way to do it is if you see radioactive symbols on the walls or biohazard stickers, I think you already have a really good idea what's going on there.
I think the stickers are actually more effective in setting the tone of the world than having the active stuff, because it's a piece of scenery.
Yes,
and that sets the tone for everything.
It's just a piece of scenery. So if you have these people in a lab walking around, they may walk by the security station, see something weird over there. They may see in the locker room, somebody's biosuit. There's all sorts of stuff you could do with that. It's just behind the scenes. And the moment you drop a character into that, the reader gets the flavor. Okay, there's someplace dangerous. There's someplace that is probably locked down, and they're behind this and everything else. We know this is like a quarantine zone in the first paragraph.
You should have somebody have a laptop that they've put a biohazard sticker on the top of the closed laptop, and somebody give them crap for taking it out of the lab.
Yeah, well, it looks like a briefcase you'd carry samples in.
You can't take that out of the building.
Yeah, you can't take that out of the building. That's going nowhere.
Because, traveling down the subway with your case with a biohazard label on it, that's not very smart.
Look, I saw Resident Evil. I know how this movie ends. Don't do it. You don't take stuff out of the biohazard lab. You don't kidnap Liam Neeson's daughter, and you don't kill John Wick's dog. If you don't do those three things, you'll be fine. All will be well.
I saw a meme where it had Liam Neeson doing the whole call thing, I will find you, blah, blah, blah. And then it has a picture of Chuck Norris says, why are you calling me? And he's like, I'm sorry. This is a wrong number. I apologize.
Oh, boy. Screamer is making herself known again. Making her displeasure known.
I brought her into the room because she was going to be standing outside the door yowling the entire time. And my kitty correction tool appears to have wandered. I think they've lost it for me.
Oh. So setting the stage for a Martian dome.
Setting the stage for Mars.
Setting the stage for Mars, yeah.
Mars is an interesting place. Its gravity is only 1/3 of what it is here on Earth. Its temperature is much colder. Its atmosphere has only got 1% of the atmospheric pressure that we have here, and it's mostly carbon dioxide. All of those things. And there's no magnetosphere. Stop that, you little turd.
Well, Terry disciplines his feline.
All of those things, you can take those significant factors and then you roll it into the story that you're writing. Obviously, if anybody goes outside, they're going to have to be in an environmental suit that provides oxygen, that conserves their temperature, that does all of these things. And you can build that into the story inside the habdomes, just having them deal with the pressure walls, the airlocks, the various things that keep them safe from radiation, because Mars doesn't protect you from radiation.
Yeah, and how does that excuse me, how does that affect the way these people live?
I would say it would make them much like living in caves. They would only very rarely venture out.
Unless they're working out their mining or something along those lines.
And if they're going to survive, they've got to have a way of protecting themselves from the radiation. The fact that if you look at The Martian that Andy Weir wrote, the guy is living on the surface of Mars. I'm uncertain whether or not he would be alive after almost a year on the surface of Mars. He would be seriously messed up.
Not unless they had a way to block cosmic rays and everything else.
Yeah.
So, but we have to make that leap of faith. It didn't destroy the story.
It didn't destroy the story because most people aren't scientists. They wouldn't know. And it's okay. You can violate certain scientific rules and change facts that even are hard facts about an environment for the nature of the story, and most people will never know. In fact, it may be useful to do so.
That in one of those solutions to problems, you were saying Mars is 1/3 gravity. You do the same thing I did in Derelict. Do they have artificial gravity?
Yeah.
Make the decision, and that changes the world. If they have 1/3 gravity the whole time, how does that affect how they live?
When I was having writing Liberty Station and the sequel to thereof, part of it took place on an orbital space station, and they had to deal with the rotating hab ring with somebody taking and shooting a gun. The Coriolis effect is real, and it affects how, when you throw an object, it may feel like you're standing up and down while you're being rotated around in a circle, but an object thrown will not go in a straight line. It will go in a curve because you are going in the curve, not the object.
Theoretically, you could hit yourself.
No, you couldn't. That's not how it works. Basically, if you're in a hab ring, imagine a cylinder with spokes around it like a wheel. It's rotating around and you're standing on the outside of it because its rotation is what's pushing you against the outside.
Right.
If you throw an object, the ring will be turning as you throw it. So even though you're throwing it in a straight line, the ring will turn, and to your perception, it will seem that the object is curving into the wall, or the floor rather. So that's what you've got to deal with. And I thought about that when I was writing it, and I put that detail in, and it helps make it feel like you're really in space.
If you want to go with that angle.
It's a detail
you chose. Yeah.
It's a detail that I could add that makes it different than the regular world.
Right. Because that would also change combat quite a bit.
Oh, yes, it did.
So once the artificial gravity is off, all bets are off as well. Yeah.
It's the same with being underwater. You react to emergencies differently. In fact, what constitutes an emergency may be completely different.
It's a very big emergency when you get a hole in your suit. It is not a big one when you scrape your leg. It don't, and are in a regular atmosphere. Suddenly, little problems become huge.
I was reading a book just recently where they had people on one of the moons of Jupiter, one of the ones that has an ice core over water underneath the surface. And they found a way to get their little rover down near the surface of the water. And when they did, accidents happened, bad things went on, and their rover ended up in the water and held to the ice by a cable. But that puts a rover designed for vacuum inside water with like 10 atmospheres of pressure. So their door seals were not designed for that sort of thing. It was designed for vacuum. It was designed for keeping temperature regulated, but not in water. And so the ways that the people dealt with that problem and they explained it set the whole problem as being alien to someone here on Earth. And it was very interesting. It was captivating that way.
That's another part of that is, setting the world, like, for instance, with Altered Carbon. I think we talked about this a week or two ago. The whole looking at the ramifications of whatever you set up in your world, that is going to, how do the characters live with it? Is such an important part, or can be such an important part of the background and scenery and the stage that these characters are going to act upon, because it makes a big difference. I mean, think about it. If a character is sitting there spouting a speech or whatever and shit's blowing up behind him, it's going to be very, very different than if they're giving a speech at the PTA.
I totally want to see the PTA speech where things are blowing up behind him.
Yeah, go ahead and write that. So it changes the flavor, the atmosphere of what's going on and how the people are going to react, what's going on around them. We don't need to know everything, but we need to know what's out of place. We don't need to know everything, but we need to know what's important and influence.
And you need to pick interesting things. Whatever you're going to use to describe your world, it can't just be a bush. Unless, I don't know, maybe it's a burning bush. I'm not sure, but it has to be something that's captivating attention-wise. The details you pick are important.
Yeah. They have a profound effect on the story, at least they can.
If you pick boring details, then that's going to make somebody start flipping pages, and that's bad.
Right. You point out the things that don't make a whole lot of sense. For instance, not necessarily don't make a lot of sense, but if I walk aboard a clean spaceship or a building where it's completely antiseptic, everything's stainless steel, there's no sign of any damage on anything, I get worried. Because the idea of being on a spaceship like that scares the shit out of me, because it means I'm the first person who's on the damn thing.
And it was probably built by the lowest bidder.
And it was probably built by the lowest bidder. If I'm on a spaceship where that looks like it did an Alien, where it's just grimy, it's been used, everything has a layer of dust on it. Whatever surface there is has a layer of dust on it.
And things worked out so well for them.
Shut up. It gives you a completely different feel of the world, the setting these folks live in. It makes them makes them seem blue collar as opposed to space agey's, rocket people.
DS9 versus Star Trek The Next Generation?
No, Star Trek The Next Generation versus Hee Haw.
Wow. Now there's quite a difference.
Now, okay, the reason why the reason why I said that is there was a Fox animated show in the 90s called The Critic, late 80s, early 90s. And there's an episode in there where they show a quick blurb about Hee Haw, The Next Generation. It's got Worf doing the paddywhack, the whole thing, and Picard's playing a banjo. Oh, it's freaking awesome. It's freaking awesome. Anyway.
All righty then.
No, it's the difference between the sleek and the tech, where all of that's you feel like all of that's been taken care of, as opposed to, wow, okay, even in the future, shit doesn't work, or even in the future, shit breaks down.
Or it's like your view of the people in the Star Destroyer versus the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah,
wang, 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 wang.
Yeah, exactly. They're the other folks have got 14,000 technicians working on one button, whereas on the Millennium Falcon, Chewbacca's beating the shit out of the generator or whatever it was that was misbehaving. So that gives a very, very different feel. Very, very different feel. A pirate hangar is not going to feel the same as a military hangar.
It's true.
It's going to have different everything. When I say pirate hangar, I imagine that there's pilfered parts, secondhand parts, everything's patched together. That's what I see when I see that. I see military, totally different.
Inside a pirate hangar, everybody's armed, but it's not like in the military where everyone is armed. It's where somebody might actually shoot your ass if you cross them.
Yeah, it's a totally different feel, and therefore the character is going to act differently. You could pick up the same character, put them in that military hangar, and they're going to act differently than if you pick them up and put them in the pirate hangar, especially if they've had a recent altercation. If they had a recent altercation with somebody in the military, they might expect to get slugged at the officer's mess or the enlisted mess, whatever. But you do that on a pirate ship, now suddenly you have to worry about a blade getting inserted between your ribs or taking a plasma blast to the skull.
Or you might be like Grebo being shot by Han Solo, and he did shoot first. And he did because he's a pirate or smuggler.
Yes.
And it's perfectly acceptable in his line of work to go ahead and shoot the guy that's going to be the threat to you before he shoots you. Do unto others as they would do unto you. Just do it first.
That wasn't perfectly acceptable. It was preferable for that character.
And that's totally different than how somebody in the military would have acted. Grebo would have shot them. That's how that would have ended.
Yeah, Greedo would have killed him.
Was it Greedo or Grebo? Something like that.
Greedo.
Okay.
There you go. Greedo. I don't know if you were trying to say Greta Garbo and it got mixed up or what.
I had misremembered the name, so I said exactly what I thought it was. It's
Fair
only
enough.
been like a billion years since I've seen Star Wars.
But setting that kind of stage is a big deal.
Seeing the details that they put out in Star Wars, having the initial scene in orbit with the Star Destroyer chasing down Princess Leia's ship, that really set the tone. The stormtroopers in their faceless armor, the men and women on the rebel ship, the big fight, that set the tone for the entire movie right there in the initial scene.
Yeah, which is exactly what you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
It told you this is action. It told you this is action, and it takes place in space.
And the faceless people are obviously bad.
Yeah, and the guys in white were obviously bad. The bad dudes
that could not hit anything.
They could not hit anything. Yes.
These marks were made by crack stormtroopers. Only they are so. I know they are not so accurate. Obviously not.
I had somebody tweet me or Facebook me the other day saying, "Well, there are a bunch of Jawas and Aunt Baru and what's his name that would disagree with that." It's like, yeah, okay, they were able to slaughter 2 people hiding in their home and a bunch of 2-foot-high dwarves. Gotcha. But they couldn't wreck anybody else.
There was a meme that had a picture of Luke Skywalker looking through the binoculars going, "Hey, I can see my house from here. They're having a barbecue."
Ow, God.
Ouch.
That's like the Star Wars pictures or figures for Aunt Beru and Uncle whatever his name was.
It's scorched.
Just skeletons burned to a crisp. Yeah.
The internet is a cruel place.
It is. I was like, oh, when is Kenner making that? It's such, the internet's a bad place. Very bad place.
Depending on the genre that you're writing in, the types of details that you will use to illustrate the world you live in are going to be different. What's appropriate for a mystery is totally different than what is appropriate for military science fiction.
Right.
In military science fiction, the details you have are probably going to be military related in some way, depending on how you go about doing that.
And if you're writing a cozy mystery, you have to describe the town.
And the people detail.
Yes.
A lot of detail.
A lot of detail. And if it's a newcomer to the crazy town, they're going to notice more things than somebody who's been there a while, who might be familiar with such and such's eccentric behavior. So it changes things a lot. It's from discovery to, oh, this is old habits. And then you start seeing things that don't match the old habits. And then you get suspicious.
And then you find the body.
Yeah. So it handles things completely differently. I mean, you can start a story that starts in a setting that is not really the setting for the story.
But how differently can you do that? How much of a different world can you have that you're setting up than where the story is?
Well, imagine this for a second. You have in Cyberpunk, you could start the story with them in VR. And you come out of it where they're in a dingy building somewhere or whatever else. There's, fast food containers all over the place, bundles of wires, the whole place smells like poo. That gives a different feel, but it breaks between the two things. Maybe things in VR are completely different. Kind of like Ready Player One.
I was going to say Ready Player One is an excellent example of that sort of thing. And if you've seen the movie and have not read the book, rush immediately to read the book because the book is so much better.
Far superior. I haven't seen the movie, I'm afraid to. So
the movie hits all the right things to set the same feel. It feels like the book, but the plot is different. So many different elements of the plot are not in the movie, or they're different. So even though you get roughly the same outcome and it feels like the book, I think that just like many other things, the book gets into so much more fun detail that the movie can't possibly.
Yeah. But that line of demarcation is huge. But both of those create different settings. And characters may act differently depending on where they are, between which setting they're in. So that's one of those. It's a little complex, a little off the walls, but the bottom line is you can cross-pollinate those two experiences.
I can imagine a VR setting where you can interact with other people in a cyberpunkish sort of way, and you come out and it's a post-apocalyptic world where you're basically living at Amish levels of support, but there's the remainders of technology still around. In a way, it's like the movie version of Stephen King's Gunslinger stuff.
Right. Yeah.
The Man in Black. What's the name of that damn movie? I've forgotten already.
The Dark Tower.
The Dark Tower.
Name of the series, name of the movie.
The ruined worlds that were destroyed, all the technology is laying around. They're using the technology from that world to get places, but it's never really explained in that much detail, but it sets the flavor of the whole set of stories.
Right. And that is the important part. It sets the world up, and it also sets up our expectations as readers. It sets up, okay, we're in this place. We don't know how long we're going to be in this place, but it flavors everything that the characters are going through and everything that is happening by the way you're showing it through that filter. The Dark Knight, very bleak Gotham City kind of thing. The buildings all look gothic and awful and horrible and foreboding. It just looks, it looks like a city that is descended into hell.
And it works perfectly for what the character of Batman, the world that he lives in. When you transpose that world to the one which Superman lives in, it fails. They tried to make it work that way in the movies, and they were not received that well because that was never who Superman was. And trying to put him in a dark world is not being true to that character. I don't think it works.
It does for some people.
No.
It does for quite a few people, actually. And apparently it does for the comics too, but I don't know. For me,
I haven't read comics in those for decades, so I can't say there. But if you look at how successfully Marvel has done in getting people in to support their movies, they have a totally different feel to their universe. They're not dark and grim and gritty. And it shows in how people are spending their dollars. Some people may like Superman in the dark mode, but I think most people don't.
I'm not a Superman fan to begin with, so I cannot comment on this.
Aquaman was good though. That's another movie where hang on now. Before you judge, hang on.
I'm gonna judge.
For what it was, I thought it was an excellent movie. You may not have seen it yet, but if you haven't, I think you should, because it was well worth the time.
I just always thought he was the most useless character in the entire DC universe. He was the least helpful of the Super Friends. He couldn't do jack shit. He just basically stood offshore and yelled at people or sent minnows after them. He's just useless.
Well, that's not how he was in this movie. Allow me to be the first to assure you.
That may be, but see, that is the image that is left in my head from my childhood.
Looking at the Justice League movie, the character of Batman, most people were like, "Oh, him! I can't stand him." I liked him as Bruce Wayne. I could care less about him one way or the other as Batman, and I'm sure they're going to replace him because there's been all kinds of talk about that. Superman didn't really work for me, but Flash, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman did. Their worlds were true to their characters, and each one of their backgrounds was an interesting story told with all the props and details that made their own setting unique and perfect for that character.
Okay, fair enough. If you do a good enough job setting it up, then it's just the characters are going to fit in it.
And that's the key.
If they don't fit in it, you're going to figure that out really fast, and you either decide to commit to the contrast or soften certain things up so that they fit a little bit better in the world.
It makes me wonder with that universe if they're going to change course going forward, because as I said, they're not being as financially successful, so they're obviously not hitting whatever mark they're aiming to go to. I'm wondering if they're going to try to hit the reset button at some point, change their Batman, change the tone of Superman, do those kind of things.
Well, with the exception of the Keaton movies and the Christian Bale Batman movies, DC hasn't done jack shit that's worth anything.
It's really weird. DC's television is amazingly successful, and it really seems to hit the mark with people that are viewing it. Their movies, much less so. Same
problem they have with animation. Marvel can't make an animated movie that interests me at all. DC's got a lot of really good ones. So it's I don't know. There's something weird going on there. I don't know if it's the asshats that DC hired to do their thing, or if it's just Marvel just seems to try and be more fun, but at the same time, it could be gritty and grim too. Trying to compare Jessica Jones to, Flash or Wonder Woman, completely different universe, I would imagine.
One of the key differences, I think, if you look from Marvel to DC, is the DC universe is built around towering, incredibly powerful people that don't really seem all that connected to everyone around them. They're not relatable to normal people. Whereas Marvel, even Thor, who is a very powerful individual, people can associate with him because when you first see him, he's acting like an asshole and he's an idiot. He's just like a drunk frat boy.
He's ignorant.
He's ignorant. And there is the way that they make him grow up, they bind him to the viewer emotionally. That the DC stuff just feels emotionally sterile. It's the way they've chosen to portray it, and it never really made that much sense to me.
Meh.
Hmm.
Meh. Meh. I got are we channeling the ghost of Justin?
Well, hey, there's a long history on the show of judging things when it comes to television and comics.
No, I was just saying about the fact that we went off into comics land. That just sounds very Justin to me.
It does.
Yeah.
I miss him.
Yeah, we miss him. It's funny that you talk about setting and everything I'm going through right now, getting everything staged in my mind, at least from the writing side, which means I've got all these notes, I've got all these browser tabs, I'm grabbing little details from here and there to throw in my research notes, and all that's informing me about what these characters are going to discover, how they're going to react to it possibly, and also the kind of problems I can throw in front of them to try and get to, where I'm going. All of that just by the setting.
Mm-hmm. When I set up Empire of Bones, I needed to set up Princess Kelsey as being who she was. When I started writing it, I had an idea of how the character would be for the first half of the novel. And what I needed to do that with is I had to take the people and the things around her and have events and things that highlighted the type of personality that I wanted her to have, and that enhance that and fit and meld with that character as she was at that time. And I think that's key to anything. You've got to have the details you choose to tell when setting up your story be ones that perfectly merge with the character as they are at that moment, their normal life, who they are, who they associate with, what they like, what they don't like. Once you get the character's flavor for the reader, then they're more emotionally connected to it and they can accept what you're going to do to them in the future. You've got to let them bond.
Right. The other thing is, if I open up a medicine cabinet, if this character opens up their medicine cabinet and I see Bengay, I see stuff for, laxatives, I see all this other kind of stuff, I already get an idea who this person is, even though I've never seen their face.
He's 60.
Late 50s, early 60s, maybe a little older. Just depends. If I see Fixident in there, I know they got dentures. It's little things like that tell us so much about the character and the world that we're living in at the same time, because we know we're going to see this colored by a different point of view, because it may be a young person. You don't know.
Everything that you have inside the story has to be filtered through the perceptions of the character. So how the character feels about them is very important. When you see the Fixident, the character being annoyed that he doesn't have his teeth anymore, that he has to, when he eats, it's not the same. Him being, grumpy about that sort of thing. That flavors, it's not just dentures sitting there, it's his life.
Right.
Or her life, for that matter.
Yeah, anybody's life.
Mm-hmm.
Any of those things can have so much to do with how the character moves through their lives and the kind of
longing to have a
steak,
steak, but they can't.
Right. Something along those lines. It's just simple things like that. They're in a house. Is it a dirty house? Is it a clean house? Is it OCD-ish? Are the maids running around there? How
Do
dirty
they have
is
a gaming console that is like epic while the rest of the house is barely furnished?
Barely furnished, or only the rooms where the gadgets are taken care of. All those things add texture to where we are and who these people are. I don't need to know anything about the person. I'm already going to have this
sink
idea
piled high with dishes, the microwave that is basically your freezer and your microwave is your only cooking. I don't know. You can use all of these things to set who the person is. And that's really key, I think, in setting up a story, is they have to inform about what you're seeing. It's not an important detail unless it's important to the character for some reason.
Yeah. So make it important to the character.
Yeah.
Make it important to the character. If I have a character who cracks some scientific thing wide open, I have to make it such that it would be astounding enough to make them do that.
And then they have to do, a really awkward football dance.
Oh God, no, I'm not doing that. No.
And his friends were like, stop, do not stop dancing. Stop dancing right now.
So I would say keep your eye out for those little details. If you have a world in mind for these folks, that's wonderful. But let us discover the world through the character as much as possible. But keep in mind those details the character would notice, would not notice. And if they don't notice it, don't spend a whole lot of time on it. But maybe you can just basically cast an eye toward it to let people know things aren't on the up and up, or this is a completely different place than where you're used to living.
A way that you could do that, using your earlier lab as an example, if they're, just going through all of these security measures to get into this place, to do this other thing, have to go through the showers and do whatever to get in there. It's all very scientific and tight. And he gets into his office and there's a kitten in there, a cat or something else that's totally normal. It's way out of place for that environment. And it would cause them to go, how the hell did that get in here?
Right. It may make the character do that, or it may not. But it will definitely do that to the reader. Why is this here? Why is this like this? And so you're going to have to explain that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of this. You just keep adding those textured pieces to it, and it just makes the world breathe. It makes the world live. It makes the world sing. And if you do your job right, it makes the characters that much more enjoyable, that much more real. And readers will just keep turning the pages.
And that is the key. That's what we want.
All right. We killed this topic?
I think we have. Well, folks, if you have something that you would like to tell us about settings, if you want to ask a question about how we do something, send us a note at show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can find Paul on Twitter at Paul_E_Cooley. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. The good folks at podhoster.com host our audio. And of course, we have the listeners of the Dead Robots Society Facebook group where everybody hangs out. And finally, we have Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get exclusive content and support this show, including things that you get. If you're a $10 supporter, you get your name read during the episodes.
And this week's $10 patrons are Sue Bayman, JD Barker, Commander Veronica Jagera of the Rebel Empire. Really?
She is.
Really?
She is.
Jack, who the F is this guy, Erickson? Kelson, 33 Thirsty Thundering Thoroughbreds, thumped Mr. Thud. Isabel Cushy, Rick, this shit's pretty good for something I last worked on 4 years ago. Shaw. Lisa, I hop this works. Nathan Crosby, Cheryl Winters, Tracy Bodine, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee, Drew Rocco's Modern Life Bernardi, Chris Winder, Andre Conde Boreas, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Handley.
Thank you very much, folks, for supporting the show. You make this possible for us.
Yes, thank you so much.
And with that, Paul, let's call it a day.
Let's call it a day and get out of here. I got stuff to do.
Stuff.
We'll see you next week, folks.
Bye-bye.